So we have this beautiful picture of a connected world that God created and filled it with all the plants and the animal, with light and darkness and man and woman, and declaring that it's all good. But then something very mysterious happens. There's this serpent, and it begins talking to a woman. And it just doesn't make sense. What is really happening in that scene?
We have what we're saying, and Moses is saying, is that the reality that we're in is the reality that was from the beginning. It is all connected. That has never changed. There is enough. Life is a mystery. Identity is received from God. That identity, although it develops, doesn't change.
Right.
And that reality continues to the present tense.
Yes.
But somehow we have begun to believe that that's not true. And so in the creation story, we see this lie that's introduced, this falsehood that somehow the world is not connected, that the connection's not the most important thing, that your identity doesn't come from God,
Wow.
received in community as part of connection, that life's not a mystery, that that's not the goal, that life is not other-focused, that none of that is actually true. So Moses is saying this is actually what's true, but it's not what we've entered into a delusion, a lie.
Wow.
And so then he begins to tell how the lie came into being. Then it's not God doing it, right? It's us doing it.
Wow.
So he relates the story of the serpent and Eve and Adam, and they do something that's really the tragedy is they stop getting their identity from God. They stop listening to God. They stop hearing God. They disconnect from God and connect to another source.
Right. So God's never disconnected from them, but they turn to themselves, I think, as their own source, thinking to themselves, should I do this? Should I not do this? Rather than staying plugged in to the source of all life.
And the way Moses talks about this is there's a tree of life and there's a tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Adam and Eve are in this world of there's enough for everybody. There's enough for everyone, and God has given you enough, and he'll provide for you, and you're connected to in your relationship. But Eve looks at this tree with this idea introduced to her by the liar, that maybe God didn't give you enough. Maybe God is withholding something from you. It produces in her fear, a kind of fear. What if there's not enough? And then we have the beginning of this different worldview.
So I think what you're saying is we're co-creators with God, which means we have the ability to think through things and develop ideas and bring them into being, really. And we have as humans, the tulip and the sunflower don't have a choice. But as humans, we have a choice.
Right, we have agency, right?
Yes, we have agency. And for whatever reason, in this moment, Eve made the choice to separate. She made that choice to separate.
And she turns inward. She's tempted to think differently than what God has said. She has an opposing idea from the liar, and she starts to think to herself. So suddenly, Eve is disconnected. She's moved into what is now the other worldview, what becomes the other worldview. And it's a false world. It's not true, but it becomes true in our own as we move into the lie, that somehow the world is in a state of separation, that somehow separation is better than being connected to all the different parts of what is reality.
So it's almost like Eve is fully connected to God. And in my mind, I'm thinking of it sort of like a computer. When your computer is connected to the wireless, there's just this never-ending information source. We could call it an energy source, just constantly coming in. And any question you could ask, it's all at your disposal right there. And it's like she unplugged from the wireless or the internet, and she just plugged into the USB port on herself. And now her only information is what she has inside of her. And it's not all powerful, all knowing, everywhere. It's just what's inside, and she's her own source of information.
And this is important because this is what Moses is emphasizing is God didn't disconnect. He never disconnects.
Right. He's right there.
He's right there. The disconnection that Eve participates in is not true. She now says, oh, I'm disconnected from God. Not true, but she can live as if it's true. And this is the damage that we start to see happen when people believe that separation is part of what's true in the world.
So we're all very familiar with the story, but it seems like the problem here is that Eve listened to the temptation of the liar, right? Maybe God's not going to provide for you. Maybe he's not enough for you. So we can just imagine her thinking process of, well, God's not going to give me what I need, wrong belief about God. And so I better go get it on my own, wrong belief about herself. And then she goes to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and eats the fruit. Wrong behavior.
Right.
And so I think we tend to focus on the behavior, but not the root of the wrong thinking that led to the behavior. And the root of that wrong thinking is separation.
Right. And so let's say what the wrong thinking is. So we've said that Moses has painted a portrait of reality that's true, that in the world there's enough. So she's already moved into, well, maybe there's not enough. Maybe I'm not enough.
Yes.
Maybe God's not going to give us enough. Maybe I'm not enough. So she's moved into scarcity, which is never true.
Wow.
So now there's not enough, and so she's shifted from there's enough into a mindset of scarcity. And the most horrible two words you can put together in a connected, mystery, beautiful universe is not enough. Those words are deadly. Not enough time, not enough money, not enough of anything, not enough land. I'm not enough. God's not enough. And this whole scarcity worldview can only promote separateness.
And so in that not enough feeling, she acts as her own source, and she has to be certain that she gets that fruit because she needs to be like God. That was the temptation. The sad thing is she forgot she's already like God.
Yeah.
And so she's going after something she already has.
Exactly.
And it's like you're explaining. It's already there, that connection and that identity, and yet she's not aware of it any longer. And she has to be certain that she goes to get it.
Right, and that certainty is apart from God. I'm going to be certain on my own. I'm going to decide what's certain, which always results in the danger of extremism. The more certain we are, the more extreme we become. But worse than that, worse than the extremism, failure is no longer acceptable. We can't fail anymore because there's limited resource, there's limited opportunity. I've got to be certain, and if I make a mistake, I'm going to lose. I'm not going to get into the right college. I'm not going to take the right job, and I'm going to miss because God's not going to provide it. And so it's all on me, right? So the worldview shifts only in her mind, only in Adam's mind. Not in reality, it didn't shift, it's all the same. But now they're living inside of a lie themselves.
Right, so we're co-creators with God. We've said that. We can create for good or we can create for bad. So suddenly, in this interaction with the serpent, they are creating apart from God. this new worldview. And in it, there's this realization there's not enough. And so I have to be certain that I am enough. So she goes for the fruit, and she's thinking the fruit is going to make her perfect.
Right.
Because then I'll be like God.
Right. Which it doesn't. So what makes us perfect? We're going to develop works-oriented kind of things to prove that we're perfect. And the result of all of that is self-focus. And it's the ultimate separation is I'm now separate even from you because you're not even enough. This is not even enough. I've got to do it on my own. Everything depends on me. And actually, I'm not good enough to do it either, but I'm going to try as hard as I can. So we separate, and Eve takes the fruit for herself. And then she gives it to Adam, and he takes it for himself. And it just creates this divide that the result of is fear, guilt, and shame. And now we have the two worldviews that Moses wants the Israelites to understand. The true one that's existing fully now, the connection one, God-given, God-created. And then the lie that we live in inside of what's true, the lie that we've built, which is separation and scarcity and certainty and perfection and self-focus. And now we're in trouble. And God's like, this worldview, this lie will kill you, will destroy you.
It's like we're living in a shadow of the truth. Some of these concepts we're saying, enough, not enough, fallibility, mystery, seem like opposites, but really it's like the shadow of the truth. The truth is there, but they started walking in a shadow of it, just a little bit off the direct path that God set out before us. And even to the point of identity, where Adam blames Eve, but he calls her the woman. He's lost sight of her identity as mother of all living. The woman,
right,
is how he refers to
So
us.
when we turn inward, we lose the truth of who we are,
Yeah.
right? And we develop an identity that's based on perfection and certainty and self-effort. And we're going to watch as we follow through the scriptures just how deadly this is, but how God is constantly reminding us and calling us back into the truth of which exists now. We can move back into that truth now. The lie is truly a lie.
So that's the question then. How can we come back into the truth from that lie? And what is the solution?
And what is
to
God's
this?
process for walking us back into the truth?